U.S. Capitol here on Monday, October 6, 2025. Welcome back, everybody, to America's Sunrise. All right, President Trump now reportedly saying Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been, quote, negative about the potential peace deal with Hamas. Take a look at the headline here. Axios reporting that Trump told Netanyahu that this was his chance for victory, but initially Netanyahu viewed Hamas's response to the deal as a rejection, which sparked at least one four-letter word. Hamas agreed to release the hostages in exchange for prisoners, but continue negotiating on other aspects. All right, we'll see if that actually comes to fruition. For more, let's bring in Jerusalem Post writer, chairman of the Judaism 3.0 think tank, and author of The Assault on Judaism, The Existential Threat is Coming from the West. That would be our good friend, Gal Kalev. Gal, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Look, there are big talks going on right now in Egypt to try and figure out the next steps here. So I guess the question is this any sort of agreement by Hamas or not? I mean, maybe on the hostages, but what about everything else in President Trump's plan? How do you see this this morning? Good morning.
Good morning. And exactly, this is the big question. Is Hamas going to follow through? And a lot of people are very skeptical about it because the hostages release is just the first part. The other part is the disarmament of Hamas and making sure that Gaza is no longer a threat to Israel, and they haven't committed to that. So we don't know. We'll see. The next days will tell. President Trump was very, very clear. If Hamas doesn't follow through, whether it's in the first stage of releasing the hostages or later on in disarming and ending its rule in Gaza, then Israel must go in militarily and do the job militarily. And Prime Minister Netanyahu is correct to be skeptical about that. Because I'm concerned that Hamas is playing here into this sort of like Western war fatigue, because we're going to make all those concessions. We're going to withdraw out of Gaza City into what's known as the Yellow Line. Hamas is once again going to come in, once again going to rearm, once again it's going to strengthen, and then they might find some excuse, whether it's not to release the hostages or later not to disarm. And when it's going to be time for us to go in, as the President Trump says, and continue the war, people are going to tell us, war again? As you know, David, I spent time in the United States. I've noticed firsthand this war fatigue, including amongst my friends. We spoke here on the show where you told me a lot of people are saying, just finish your job already. So it's possible that Hamas is doing exactly what they've done October 7th, assuming that once we go in, the West will stop us. And then they get back to Gaza, they get back into power and commit more terrorism on October 7th against us.
Wow, this is so complicated. I just keep thinking, just please get those hostages out of there. Just please get those out. Was that part of the strategy, though, Gal, wrapping that all together? Because for me, I want those hostages out so badly. I feel like this could have been a two-part deal, a two-part negotiation instead of it's all or none. Because if the back end of this falls down, which I understand is super important to world security, but if the back part of this falls down, those people have been there 2 years, and I'm just thinking about the mamas.
Exactly. We want the hostages out, but we also want to make sure that there's not another, hundreds of hostages taken in a few months. And if Hamas is in Gaza, that's the plan. And we have to be clear-eyed about it. So exactly as Trump says, exactly as the plan suggests, we need to have the ability to either Hamas does it itself and disarm itself, or we got to go in and do the job for them. So again, I'm very concerned about this war fatigue that, I described it in my book. And if you remember, after October 7th, 2 years ago, on October 8th, 9th, and 10th, we spoke about exactly this is the Hamas strategy. They just committed this horrific, murdering 1,200 Jews. And they're hoping that the West now, sooner or later, will tell Israel, ceasefire now. And this is exactly what we're concerned. So I actually think Prime Minister Netanyahu is correct in being a little bit negative and skeptic about Hamas. That's his job description. And I think our job description is to pray that God bestows good advice to President Trump and to Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Gal, what you term war fatigue, I think is very appropriate in terms of how many Americans are feeling about the ongoing conflict there in Gaza. Specifically, another thing you said is that there are a lot of Americans who just want to get the job done. You say, just go ahead and finish the job. That's our perspective. We're obviously separated from it a little bit, and much of our perspective is coming from what we see in the media. So I'm curious, on the ground in Israel, what is the appetite? I would imagine there's got to be some war fatigue, as you describe it there as well. What is the appetite in terms of how to move forward? Is it just get the job done and wipe out Hamas, or is there a move, a sense for more diplomacy, or to give diplomacy another try?
I think most people are first of all, we trust President Trump. And when President Trump said repeatedly that diplomacy doesn't work, you're going to go in and finish the job militarily, Israelis, trust Trump and like Trump. So I think had there been no hostages, I'm sorry to say this word, the brilliance of Hamas of taking those hostages, and that's why they're going to do it again. That's why other groups in Europe and the United States might do it again. They took those hostages because they understand that our hand in fighting our tide. If there were no hostages, we would go in very hard at Gaza. We would decimate Hamas. We'll kick them out, and we would win the war probably already a while ago. But we're, fighting very gently and in a precision way because we're very concerned about the life of the hostages and we want to get them back. So Israelis on the ground, there's no war fatigue because we are, there's no survival fatigue. War fatigue, the mirror image is survival fatigue. We are resolute. We're as resolute as we were on October 8th 2 years ago. And we're as resolute today. We want to survive. We're a nation of believers. We are together in this. And there might be disagreements about what's exactly the right way. But I think most Israelis agree now that let's give this deal a chance so we can get our hostages back, as long as we're allowed. The other points in Trump's plan, if they don't get fulfilled, then we must be allowed and get the support, exactly as Trump says, to finish the job militarily. I mean, we have to be clear. We're taking a step. We're going months back. The war will last longer because we are giving peace a chance. But we got to do that. We got to give peace a chance, and it's peace through strength because of the condition that President Trump created.
Gal, we've got 30 seconds or so. And to be clear, President Trump is the greatest friend Israel's ever had. Let's do the disclaimer there. But let me just run down a quick little timeline. In January 2025, when he was inaugurated, a month before that, he said, if the hostages aren't back by the time he's inaugurated, there'll be all hell to pay. In March, he said the same thing. Hostages not back, there'll be all hell to pay. Now, September of 2025, he says by Sunday, 6 p.m., all hell to pay. And it's past Sunday at 6 p.m. Your thoughts?
Well, that's what some people are worried, that Hamas is looking at this and saying, well, we can play with this. We can, prolong this another week, another month, another, few months. And then Israel's hands will be tied in terms of trying to continue the war militarily. So there's this concern. But, there's a lot of things we don't know that I said earlier. We got to, pray that God bestows President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu with good judgment and advice, because the good news here is that the people in Israel have faith in the leadership of President Trump. And I think that we have to give diplomacy a chance, maybe one last chance. But if it doesn't work, we must have a wall-to-wall consensus that will allow us to fight and defend ourselves by ourselves and go into Gaza and do the job militarily.
Gal Kalev, great to have you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Gal.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, big-time controversy. The FDA has approved another generic abortion drug. How is the conservative movement reacting? Well, let's just say not good, and that's an understatement. Details when we come back, everybody.